Well, yes, just basically how shocking the housing was. Because from stuff I've read later, a lot of tenements, particularly like in Govan Hill now, were built very solid. The Glasgow, the Gorbals ones, I think, were some of the earliest. I think 1892, 1894. But they were shoddily built in the first place, and they were never maintained. A lot of them, as I say, had outside loos or a loo on the landing, between 3 or 4 flats. And the factors were notoriously bad. Our factor was, I think, McPhee, with an office up near Queen's Park. So he comes up in his big fancy house one day to inspect his properties. And of course word had gone round. So there's all the wee wifeys coming out the tenements, charging down Crown Street towards him. He gets back in his car sharpish and drives off. I don't think he ever set foot in one of them. They leaked, the windows were shoddy, there was no heating. I mean, in that flat we had an electric fire in the living room and a convector fire in my bedroom. I'd say with a flat roof, and it leaked, single glazing, sash windows, half of which didn't work. And that's basically why the whole of that part of the Gorbals just got flattened, because I don't think there was anything salvageable amongst it.
And was all of the Gorbals like that?
Certainly anyone I knew lived in something comparable. As I say, I think the Gorbals had basically been thrown up to accommodate factory workers. But what form of longevity they thought it would have when they built it, I don't know. And perhaps they stood up long after they were fit for purpose. But then what they replaced it with wasn't a whole hell of a lot better, because you had Pine Place, which was basically probably about where the centre of New Gorbals is now, and it was just a long row of glass and steel with a flat roof built to a south of France design in Glasgow. They were damp, the number of children in there with chest issues. So their advice was, put your central heating on full and open your windows. To people on minimum wage or working 2 jobs. So I think it only lasted about 5-6 years before they demolished it. And then the other monstrosity of the time was Queen Elizabeth Square, which I've already said about. And then there was another couple of high-rise, just square blocks that were sort of further over from Queen Elizabeth Square. And that's where a lot of people, obviously, when they demolished the Gorbals, they put people in these high-rises, or they moved them out to the schemes, which we never were. But I think, from what I've heard about the early schemes, they weren't good places because they were built for housing but no amenities. Built with very few shops, built with nothing, no community hubs. Whereas even if in a tenement you didn't have a community hall or whatever, the close was your community. The close in the back court, that was the community.
Was there issues with damp in these?
Oh, there would have been, yeah. There's got to have been.
How about in the tenement the flat roofed house you were in? You said
It leaked. I remember there being a permanent bucket in my bedroom because it was a flat roof and it had like this black tarpaulin on it, which every so often they would come out and try and tack it down around the edges or tack it up to the chimney so the rain wouldn't get in. But it was a nice place to go and sit in the summer.